Peace, everybody. Peace. My name is Jabari. Welcome to another episode of Jabari Vok Media. Now, this is going to be a different episode. Just real quick. Of course, I never run out of guests. So, people be like, oh, sometimes you don't have any guests because you run out. No, I don't run out of guests. I've been sick. Unfortunately, I found out that I had an infection in my lung, bro. Can y'all believe this? An infection in my lung. But it is what it is. I'm going to keep going. I took one day off. I'm back to work. That's all that matters at the end of the day. I clocked in, did my shift. Now I'm here talking with you guys. And we have a lot to talk about. Um, Again, this is Jabari on Jabari Vlog Media, also the host of Unsavory Politique, along with my co-host, the man himself, Alex Suarez. We'll have another new episode out for you next week as well, too. This is a solo right here. I'm dolo. I like being dolo sometimes, you know what I mean? Especially when there's a lot to get off my chest with Jabari Vok Media podcast. So today we're going to get right into it. Again, get the hit the barcode, hit the barcode right on the thumbnail that I have presented to you guys right there. If you would like to like, share, and subscribe, please like, share, subscribe on social media platforms. But we need you right now. First subscription free on Roku TV, the channel Connecthub. Sign up to Connecthub. You get to watch weekly episodes of Jabari Vok Media every single Friday. Of course, this Friday, this one's going to be late based off the timing of this episode. But I was sick. I don't miss. We have a lot coming on with you guys. First and foremost, I want to talk about real quick, you know, I know y'all see my headline right here. Of course, we're going to talk about the Trump and the whole uh, recounting of the Epstein issues with the list, why there isn't so much information brought out, how many powerful people. Of course, we're going to talk about that. And Elon Musk, of course, we're going to talk about the cat fight between Elon Musk and all that stuff. You know what I mean? We're going to talk about that. But I want to first get down to the nitty gritty, get my notes out here. Remember, when you dolo, you got to do this by yourself. So, so I'm just going to let y'all know straight up. This episode is going to be, I gave you a lot of music episodes. I gave you a lot of different perspectives of people, way of life. I rarely give you my own editorials unless I'm around someone politically to give my own editorials, which I do every other Friday, once every politique. But I'm going to give you my full on perspective on what's going on in Gaza, what's going on here domestically, on the popular topics that I brought up domestically, which is, it's just that, I just don't think there's nothing else to do. All the human rights organizations, every last human rights organization, even though human rights organization that like to peddle CIA propaganda as well too for human rights purposes. And when I say that, I'm talking about I'm thinking of Amnesty International. I'm thinking of the Human Rights Caucus. Pretty sure I didn't say that. HRC. I'm thinking of every single establishment, and this is why I want to play this video. It's a bit of a video, but it's so important. What Brianna Joy Gray, and also former UN Craig MacGyver talk about. You know what I mean? We have all these human rights organizations calling out Israel for war crimes. Why are we still here? Why are we still talking about this? Why hasn't anything been done about this? There's one thing that MacGyver talks about more video I'm about to show you, where he tells us straight up that there's no democratic organization that is around that can actually hold the United States and Israel held accountable, because it's been designed that way. I want you to think about that while you listen to the discussion. All these organizations that have been established that are supposed to call out genocide, supposed to call out war crimes, the whole purpose of them, the U.S. even created a lot of these organizations, given the ICJ, the ICC. You know what I mean? All these organizations that are made can't really hold the U.S. and Israel accountable. So let's play a little bit of this video. Of course, I might pause on certain points because I think they are important. So let's play this.
That underpins it, and of course the complicit Western powers like the U.S. and corporations that enable it. So in November of 2024, and then meeting for the first time in London in February of 2025, the Gaza Tribunal came together. And it just completed its first public meeting and public hearings in Sarajevo from 26 to 29 May, with the adoption of the declaration to which you referred, the Declaration of Sarajevo. This was an initiative of another prominent public intellectual, this time Professor Richard Falk. He's a preeminent professor of international law, former special rapporteur on human rights in Palestine. He's now the president of the Gaza Tribunal, which assembles thinkers and activists from Palestine, from around the globe, not only to challenge, the genocide that's being perpetrated, but also the complicity of states and media corporations and others, especially in the West, and the inaction or inadequate response of international institutions to this. So we work through, I'm a member of the Tribunal, I serve on its steering committee, and I'm also co-chair of one of its so-called chambers on international relations and world order. We look at international law, international institutions, history, ethics, philosophy.
Now, real quick, I'm going to let him finish his comment, but, when the conflict first started, I was gung-ho posting about international law and all this stuff like that, knowing damn well that international law, I mean, he left the UN, Christ. International law clearly doesn't work. The Geneva Convention started after World War II. The whole point of the Geneva Convention was to make sure that we conduct wars responsibly and do not commit war crimes that, like wiping out people's apartment buildings, all stuff like that. Countries still do that shit, especially countries that are aligned with the US. They still do that shit. And they only go, when it comes to prosecuting somebody, they only go after the countries that are not aligned with the United States or that are too poor, like the African dictators that have been prosecuted through the ICJ. It is very, very historic that the ICJ not only assessed, but also ruled that there's provocations to genocide. Don't get me wrong. That's a good thing. It's a good thing that the international courts a year ago acknowledged, off the behest of the South African government and off of the behest of the Irish government now, that there is actual war crimes going on. And because of this, we have an arrest warrant from the ICC on Netanyahu. Why is Netanyahu not locked up? Because international law does not matter. That's the sad part. And I'm not saying this just to take a dive at MacGyver. It's great that they're making all these tribunals and acknowledging the genocide. It's great. But like I said, all the human rights organizations acknowledge that Israel's committed genocide, but we are still here yelling, talking about it, marching about it, donating to stop it, building awareness, posting about 24/7. All these kids that graduated and are doing commencement speeches and all this stuff, talking about it, it's out in the open. The media is changing and is realizing that a U.S. ally is capable in this modern era to commit genocide. let's let this video keep going.
Philosophy, all of the failures that have allowed this to go forward, to talk about how we can use the power of people to try to push back against these horrors. And we listen to survivor testimonies, expert witnesses, analysis of our own members. We'll be convening a jury of conscience in the coming months to pronounce on this question as well. We're putting together an archive of evidence, and we adopted this Declaration of Sarajevo on 29 May to encapsulate basically our vision for a global moral response to the ongoing Nakba in Palestine.
Can you elaborate a little bit about what you heard in the testimonies that took place over the course of the 4 days in Sarajevo?
Well, there's a remarkable consensus among.
Now, before he gets to the testimonies, this is why I don't knock when people are trying to do tribunals and all these things to bring more knowledge, because a lot of reasons why the how do I put this, the visage, the lie, the scene, the improvisation, whatever you want to put it, of Israel keeping the narrative that they are a moralistic country has been working for decades. Everyone was ignoring in the West at some point the Palestinians. Everyone. They saw them as terrorists. They didn't see Palestinians as being humans. They saw them as being terrorists. And that term terrorist doesn't even mean anything no more, because my government works with terrorists. So it really doesn't mean anything anymore. Well, that's a whole other conversation about Syria and everything else. But at the end of the day, when you have these great intellectual people finally looking at the right side of history, you know, the doctors as well too, that's in Gaza, there was a lie that they said that Hamas was killing their own children and all this stuff. That was debunked. There was a lie saying that Israel isn't killing children. The doctor literally said, here are x-rays of the kids that I have treated. They have chest shot wounds. They have head shot wounds. They called him a liar, and he sent x-rays. So this tribunal getting testimonies out is adding more to the issue that Israel, the state of Israel, is a genocidal state, an apartheid genocidal state. Let me make sure that's clear. Apartheid genocidal state. Zionism within itself is a political ideology that is a branch under white supremacy. It is. At the end of the day, it is. So let's listen to him talk about these testimonies.
Activists, academics, thinkers, public intellectuals, philosophers, lawyers, which is a kind of universal moral outrage at a live streamed genocide, of which we are all aware by now, 19 months into this horror. But not just this current upsurge in genocide, but 77 years plus of colonization and persecution of the Palestinian people, and a frustration with genocide denial, ignoring the colonization and persecution of the Palestinian people amongst official institutions at the national level, at the international level, media corporations, complicit other actors in society, and a sense that this is a real threat, not just to the lives and well-being of the Palestinian people on the front lines of this struggle, but to the whole idea of an international order, the whole idea of international law, of international human rights, of international cooperation, international relations understood as having some normative base. All of these things are being threatened in an existential battle, the front lines of which are in Palestine at the moment. And we reject basically the common wisdom of officialdom. We begin with this basic idea that Palestinian people are human beings with human rights, right? They have the right to self-determination. They have the right to return to their homes anywhere in historic Palestine. They have the right to be equal under the law, freedom from fear and want. This is a basic statement of what international law says, but what is denied by the powers that be in this cases. And also you heard, a very strong recognition that there is an alignment of quite dark forces that are perpetrating that genocide in Palestine and threatening all of these very important aspects of the societies in which we live.
All right, what was that? I think that is a commercial that's about to pop up.
I want to buy your house.
Oh,
I can pay you cash for your house no matter what condition it's in. If you need to sell your...
Yeah, I'm not paying for YouTube, and also not playing any of commercials unless y'all paying me.
And seeing the failure of international institutions to do their job as well. So, a universal recognition that the cause of justice falls to people, to legitimate resistance, to acts of solidarity, to civil disobedience, to civil society and social movements, to people of conscience, basically everywhere. And at least an idea that we have to try to mobilize the power of the people in their millions to challenge Israel's crimes and its co-conspirators or conspirators, to isolate the Israeli regime, to dissent to the complicity of our own governments and our own institutions in the genocide, to bring pressure to bear from society, right? That people refer to it as bottom up. I actually think it's top down. I don't put the politicians above society, but to bring pressure in every sector to make clear that genocide will not be normalized, apartheid will not be normalized, colonialism will not be normalized anymore, and yes, Palestine will be free. That's the cry of conscience that was coming out of the tribunal. We heard not just the testimony of experts and thinkers, but also moving testimony from victims of horrific forms of torture and abuse and deprivation and starvation.
Pay attention,
that was
please.
read at the meeting of the tribunal as well. And the way I want to avoid any confusion. So the tribunal, includes some of the most skilled international lawyers on the planet. That's for sure. But it's not a formal legal or judicial mechanism. It's an assembly of civil society, of movements, of thinkers and activists that is just people who are determined to end these horrors that we are forced to witness every day.
And this is a really good thing. This is a really good thing. I'm very, very happy that they are able to do this. So now that y'all know, y'all need to plug in. They need to plug in. Seriously. One more part. Let's talk about this motherfucker Miller. Matthew Miller has been the Secretary of Defense. Oh my God. He was answering on the Pentagon level. He was answering questions about Gaza 24/7, saying that Gaza does not have a genocide. He doesn't even still want to admit that it's a full genocide, but he's acknowledging that there are war crimes. He's acknowledging that they were killing women and children now. And I want to play what he's saying.
The genocide?
I don't think it's a genocide, but I think I think it is without a doubt true that Israel has committed war crimes.
You wouldn't have said that at the podium.
Yeah, look, because when you're at the podium, you're not expressing your personal opinion. You're expressing the conclusions of the United States government.
I don't know if this is what he was thinking, but the look on this man's face when he said that you didn't address that at the podium, he was like, oh, now you would admit there's war crimes, but at the podium, you wasn't saying there was nothing going on. Motherfucker. Like, that's the look on his face that I just got from him.
The United States government had not concluded they've committed war crimes, still have not concluded that.
But your personal view is they have.
And
they were while you were there.
But let me qualify that. There are two ways to think about the commission of war crimes. One is if the state has pursued a policy to deliberately committing war crimes or is acting reckless in a way that aids and abets war crimes. If the state is committing war crimes, and that I think is an open question.
I'm gonna let Mike Miller finish, but let's see that if the state is committing war crimes. We had two former prime ministers of Israel, come out and say, yes, we are committing genocide, not just war crimes. They also said they're committing war crimes as well too. We also had Smotrich, who is the head of the financial government very powerful, say that we want to ethnically cleanse Gaza. Out with his chest. Out with his chest. So anybody that's out here still trying to pretend that Israel's not, their own people is snitching on themselves, bro. Like this, all the human rights organizations, their own people are snitching on themselves. I want to give credit to Pierce Morgan, but he's finally flipped after almost being 2 years now. I just don't know. I just don't know what else excuse they looking for.
I think what is hard is almost certainly not an open question is that there have been individual incidents that have been war crimes where Israeli soldiers, members of the Israeli military, have committed war crimes. And we do know that Israel has opened investigations, but look, we are many months into those investigations and we're not seeing Israeli soldiers held accountable. So ultimately, in almost every major conflict, including conflicts prosecuted by democracies, you will see individual members of the military, of militaries commit.
Okay, so, he goes into that whole, okay, you will see everybody committing war crimes. So he's still defending Israel. Because he going from, oh, yes, they're committing war crimes. These individuals in Israel, these soldiers, are committing war crimes. And Israel has opened up investigations. We all know they don't care. They just tell you they're opening up. It's like how the police are here. Unless you don't add pressure to them, they're going to tell you that they're opening up investigation to a crime that they themselves committed. But do they actually follow through? No, they don't. Unless me and some other motherfuckers like me show up with other motherfuckers that want justice, and that's when they start buckling. That's the only time. That's the only time I've seen it. That's the only time I see it. And that's exactly how Israel is. They investigate themselves and they exonerate themselves. Very simple. Very simple. It's not that difficult. We investigate ourselves so nobody else can investigate, and then we'll exonerate ourselves. Why do you think international journalists are not allowed in Israel? I'm sorry, in Gaza. International journalists are banned in Gaza. And the only journalists that they allowed in the international community are put on tours in Gaza. They're coddled. They only show you what they want you to see. They don't want you to see the concentration camps that are just up. Nope. They want you to see what they think is a good vision for Israel. So whenever you hear journalists that be like, oh, I just came back from Gaza, look at their work and you will see how corrupt they are. Because no actual journalist with integrity is allowed in Gaza right now. And the journalists with integrity that live in Gaza, that are Palestinians, are getting killed. Getting killed. Speaking of, international solidarity, this is something right here. This is reported by the Breakthrough News. For the 5th time, where everybody in the world is demanding a ceasefire, permanent ceasefire in Gaza, my country, the United States, vetoes the vote. Why does the United States have so much power that they can veto the vote in the UN? No one questions that. That doesn't sound authoritarian. Doesn't sound like oligarchy. I'm just asking. How is the United States able to veto a vote that was majority for a ceasefire? The UN is put in a way, and Craig MacGyver, please check out that please check out that interview with Craig MacGyver. It's a very revealing interview. There's so much that they talk about, but I have so much other stuff to cover. I can't get to it. And why am I small? Let's go back big. So Craig MacGyver talks about also how the United States and the UN is against anything that has to do with child protection, anything that has to do with human rights, anything that has to do with self-defense of oppressed people. These are things that are part of their ideology and how they run things in the United States. So this is why you'll see them veto the bill. You'll see them veto multiple things that could help out people, because they want you to not be able to have a mindset of we can change things. They want you to have a mindset of lay down, commit to authority. That's their mindset. That's how they teach us here in America. That's why everybody freaks out when they don't listen to authority. They think they're wrong. Here's another example before we get back into it. The school systems of the United States, how they were created, they weren't made out of thin air. The school systems are actually an adaptation of the Anglo-Saxon kingdom, which is no more, which is actually modern day Germany. Prussia school systems are what we have here. Our school systems is an adaptation of Prussia. In the Prussia school systems, Prussia made sure that they teach kids to respect authority, never question authority. This is their history and their doctrine. So you have to learn these things so you can understand white supremacy. So I might sound like a nerd to you, but everything is not a mistake or new. It's all designed and refabricated and rebranded. It's like how the parents used to tell us back in the day, oh, we used to have that style too. That's just coming back. It's the same thing. In the 1700s, they copied Prussia school systems. And the reason why they did it, because it was able to teach us, no question authority. If you question authority, you're part of the problem. That's what Prussia did to their people. And that's what the United States for the last almost 300 years is doing to us. So why do you think, these people in power, they just look at us like, how fucking dare you think you have your own opinion? Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's why they're able to do things like this. And nobody in the United States questions it, because they're like, well, the United States, at the end of the day, I like to think that they do something correct in the world, or they're morally inclined to be the police of the world. And we used to think like, what's that dude? Stephen Colbert said, oh, I like to think that whatever the US does, that there's good in what they're doing. No, Stephen Colbert, honey, they want to control. They want to give complete control. They want this Palestinian struggle to not be mainstream. They want this Palestinian fight for liberation and solidarity to be destroyed. That's what they want. And anyone that thinks that that's not what they want, I don't know what else to tell you at this point. I don't know what else anyone else can say at this point. But let's go on to Greta. Somebody who is actually trying to do good in this world. Greta Thunberg.
Into Gaza. It's also about the breaking the medical seizure to Gaza, bringing in doctors.
So context. Greta's not in this video. She's in the next video. And there's something that happened while they were on the boat. So I'm going to show it. So Greta Thunberg and a coalition of all these great people right here are on a boat with supplies to help feed Gazans, to help out Gazans. And they're being threatened by the Israelis, of course, because they are going to be there by the time of this taping is less than 72 hours. And Greta wants to prove a point that I hope that nothing happens to her, but she's showing already that Israel has no intentions to feed Gazans, because why would they deny aid? Just like how there's thousands of trucks parked outside the border that just can't come in. They'll let a few in and be like, look, we fed some of them. 2 million people there. You see videos of Palestinians running to try to get food. You see them in these assembly lines that's similar to what happened in Poland. You see a lot of similarities of what happened in Poland and Auschwitz when you look at these videos, and they're shooting them too. They're shooting people that are trying to get food. So if you do make it to get food, Craig MacGyver reported that it's really not an essential packet that they give you, and they don't have anything for your kid, who is the most that's suffering, for your infant child especially.